Everybody's here, obviously, for with regard to the investigation of the death of at least 4-year-old Alicia Morrow. Uh, what I can tell you at this point in time is that the uh, autopsy's been completed from the standpoint of the doctor's examination of the body. The preliminary results of the autopsy are inconclusive. There's no obvious signs of trauma to the child. This will be an ongoing investigation, ongoing autopsy. Really, there's a lot of lab tests, toxicology, those kinds of tests that are going to be done, and then we'll hopefully get a final autopsy report in the next few weeks. We are charging Chelsea Cook with intentional child abuse this morning. That's a Class 3A felony. She'll be in court tomorrow morning in courtroom 50 at 9 a.m. To answer to those charges. There's also being other work done in the juvenile court system with regard to another child that was present at that residence, a 3-year-old. We filed a petition in the juvenile court for removal of that child. That's an ongoing process, investigation. The police, child victim unit, and the homicide unit are currently still working this case, investigating the case. So it's ongoing. We'll see where this leads us. The fact situation is that the defendant, Chelsea Cook, had been the 4-year-old's caretaker or caregiver since about December of 2014 at that residence. On January 3rd, 2016, the defendant found the 4-year-old victim lying naked on the floor in the residence, shallow breathing, cold to the touch to some extent. At that time, the defendant failed to seek any medical attention or treatment for that child. Police responded on January 5th. They found the child wrapped in plastic in the basement of that residence. There was a tiny amount of food in the residence, so very little food, only one bed in the residence. There was a question about how well the heat worked in that furnace at that residence at the time. So the failure to seek medical treatment, the fact that we believe the child was at risk because of the nature of the residence and the care given is the crux of the intentional child abuse charge. And as I said, this is ongoing. We'll see where the investigation leads us. But obviously, without, at this point in time, a doctor being able to give us a definitive cause of death, that stops us pretty much from doing anything with regard to a homicide charge. So, she'll be in courtroom 50 tomorrow at 9 o'clock, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can.
What class felony is it then?
It's a 3A.
How many years does that carry?
It carries up to 3 years. Now that the legislature had made the change in 605 last year, that changed the penalty for that, lowered the penalty for that to 3 years.
The legislature changed it?
Well, the LB 605 made a lot of changes with regard to penalties in the criminal justice system, and that's one of them that was lowered by 605.
What was it before that?
Well, 3A would normally be 5 years. Now it's down to 3 years.
How often do these autopsies come back inconclusive?
Well, the doctors are obviously do their examination, and there are times when they want to be sure, without any obvious signs of trauma, lab tests. Did the child have an illness? Was the child sick? There are some conclusions they can come to after the lab test is completed that will help them make a determination of cause of death. And obviously they're going to do a very thorough job and make sure that they have all the things that they need to do to make a decision based on a reasonable medical certainty.
So would we say preliminary autopsy results are inconclusive?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Could a homicide charge potentially come if then these, say, weeks from now, these tests come back to show something?
Sure, that's what I mean, I guess, when I say it's an ongoing investigation, and it's not complete yet till we have the autopsy, the final autopsy results. There are several scenarios that could lead to the potential, a potential charge with regard to the homicide itself, or a homicide itself. There's a child abuse resulting in death. There's a murder charge. It just depends on factually what we have and from an evidence perspective with regard to cause of death.
Do you think Mrs. Cook was trying to hide the body?
Well, I guess I don't know what her thought process was, but to me it's very obvious if you're putting the body in the basement of a residence and not calling anyone. She finally apparently did tell her family, and that's how that led to the discovery of the child being there. But it seemed obvious to me.
What date was it that she came home and found the child breathing shallow?
That was early Sunday morning.
Which is what the police report said.
Right.
Did she say she left the child alone for a while? What did she mean by she found the child in that situation?
Oh, she was asleep in another room, I think, and then found the child on the floor of an adjacent room, I believe. Again, this is ongoing, so these are some preliminary facts that they'll be stated at the bond setting tomorrow.
You said there was one bed in the house. Was Miss Cook in the bed?
I think she was asleep with the other child in that bed.
And the other child had no bed?
I don't know that
You said there was
situation.
just one bed in the
Right,
house.
that's all I know is that there's one bed. I don't know if they were co-sleeping with all the children or not. And that's, again, part of the process. We'll see.
That 3-year-old, was that Cook's child?
So my understanding that it's her biological child.
And you said you filed a petition to seek removal.
Yes, that's in the process in juvenile court right now. Okay?
Don, some scenes, I know you go out to some of these homicide investigations. Were you at the scene?
No, wait, I got the call about 2:30 Sunday morning about this, but by that time the child had been removed, I believe, so I didn't get to that scene.
Do you know if
Brenda,
it's a boy
sometimes
or
we'll go out,
girl?
we'll both go out there to those. What's that?
I'm sorry, boy or girl?
Son.
Or son, right?
Right. On the biological child, yeah.
How were the police notified? How did they get to the scene? Who called?
I don't know the answer to that. Like I said, that's something we'll get when we get all the reports together. We've been briefed. We've talked to also to the coroner's office with regard to the autopsy, but there'll be further briefing and we'll get more information at that point in time.
Are there any records that Child Protective Services ever looked into Chelsea Cook for other reasons?
Those have been looked into, and at this point in time, I believe that we haven't been able to find any prior issue with regard to CPS, and we looked into that this morning right away.
Can you talk more about this situation? Have you spoken with the child's biological mother to figure out what happened, this whole caregiver?
We haven't spoken. I know the police have talked to her. There's been an interview. We're aware that, as I said, in December of 2014, there was some agreement made, or there was some paperwork done where biological mom of Alicia gave the child to Chelsea Cook. And so that's all being looked into as what the circumstances were there, the purpose, and we'll see.
Is that legal?
When you say legal, I mean, it's not illegal from the standpoint of a guardianship or a court process. I guess it's a paper that shows somebody's intent in allowing somebody to take care of their child. But from a legal standpoint, I mean, it's certainly we want children to be taken care of, and if somebody's not going to take care of, we want them to give them to somebody that would. But it's not really legal from the standpoint of a process where a judge has overseen that, or it's been in a court of law.
The mother claims, the biological mother claims that she had filed police reports, missing children police reports. Are you looking into stuff like that?
Yeah, all that stuff's, like I said, this is an ongoing investigation, so we'll see.
Could there be any more charges filed against a biological mother or anyone else in this case?
All I can tell you is it's an ongoing investigation. We'll see where the evidence leads us, and that's what we do. We'll let the police, the child victim unit investigate. They'll bring us the reports, and then we'll make a decision based on the evidence, so we'll see.
Now, the suspect's family told us that the furnace was broken and all that stuff. Are you looking into that situation on whether somebody should have reported that to begin with if they, there was knowledge that this home had no working furnace and there are children living there?
Absolutely. All the things that the police are looking into is the situation that this caregiver had that if they put that child at risk. That's the question, and that's part of the intentional child abuse and maybe knowing that this child has an issue and not getting medical treatment or not providing proper care intentionally for this child, knowing that the child needed care. Okay? All
Thank
right.
you, Don.
Sure.
Thanks for